If you haven't watched the National Championship episode yet, definitely watch that before you watch this recap, as I will be spoiling the game. Welcome everybody to the Kalispell Warhawk Dynasty here on NCAA Football 14. We have done it, everybody. After 8 seasons of building this team, the Warhawks are national champions. It's been quite the journey from level 1 to whatever level we're at now. We're on a completely different one, that's all I know. It's been a really fun series, a series that has surpassed even my own expectations. When I began this series, I just wanted a new challenge. I do so many of these football series, I'm at the point where I just really want to see different challenges and to give myself new situations to have to build teams in. And to take a team, put them in Montana, have them at a very low level to start out in a place where you're not really going to recruit a lot of talent in your region. I love the idea of what this series could be, and to see where it is now is pretty awesome. This was a great season for us, of course, here in year 8. And obviously, as I've talked about, the series is not over because we've now won a championship. I don't know how long the series is going to go. I would say it's pretty much a safe bet to say at least 10 seasons, maybe more. We'll see. I'll know when it's done, basically. Like I knew with the Minnesota Dynasty. I knew that we had kind of reached the end, and I didn't think there were many challenges left for us to go through. But of course, with these series, it feels like you could go forever because you're always getting new players, you're always having to move on from a certain position group being a strength of your team to now all of a sudden becoming a weakness, or, you know, just different transitional things with the game of football, especially in the college game where no one plays more than a handful of seasons. But I really enjoyed this ride, and to have so many of you, thousands of you that enjoy these episodes every time they're put out, whenever they're put out, it is pretty special, and I really enjoy that here as a creator, seeing all the enthusiasm around the series. And I was really happy to be able to do the national championship episode using the YouTube Premiere feature, because it gave me a chance to watch you react to the video and not just have it in the post-game comment section, to be able to see reactions to big plays that I knew were going to happen. And it was really fun. It was really cool. And today what we're going to do is talk about the season and talk about where this team is at and where we're going to be moving forward. But know that the Kalispell Dynasty is not done. Here is where this team is at after 8 seasons. Those first 2 were tough, but since then we've enjoyed multiple conference championships, many bowl victories. We've only lost 1 bowl game, and we've had a lot of success here in this window. It has been a pretty incredible ascension for this team from where we started out. And I wanted to talk about this season in particular, obviously, being the recap. This was our first year, of course, in the Pac-12 Conference, and I really didn't think that a season like this was possible. Well, I didn't think it was probable, but I knew that we had the talent to do some cool stuff. I do kind of think this was a down year for the Pac-12, and it's kind of hard to get a read on what these teams are going to do usually. If you look at our opponent win-loss, we didn't face a lot of top teams, as you can tell. Oregon wasn't great this season. Washington was surprisingly below 500. Oregon State just 7-5. So it was kind of a perfect storm kind of season for us. Everything came together exactly how it needed to. And I tried to make our schedule here in the non-conference portion pretty tough because I wanted us to kind of be battle tested for Pac-12 play. Obviously the UConn game was I like to open the season with an easier matchup, but they ended up being 7-5, although our offense absolutely shredded their defense and we put up some of our best numbers on the season. But the Alabama game, I did not expect to run on them the way that we did. I knew they had all these All-American running backs, and you can see we ran 31 times for 171 yards. That is really, really good, but obviously our defense didn't fare so well against their passing game. But just look here at our rushing performance. We had 91 yards from Thomas, 50 yards from Warren, 30 from Lee. I mean, the numbers are pretty good, but against a team like Alabama with our offensive line, I think when you adjust for those things, it's a pretty special performance. The West Virginia game, though, that did surprise me. Every now and then we get ourselves into a game where they're able to take away the things I really like to do. And this was just one of those games. They had a good day offensively. And for us, it was one of the games we struggled the most. No touchdowns here for Warren, just two interceptions is not very good. Obviously, he had negative 32 rushing yards, which means he got sacked a ton. Which, by the way, the fact that rushing yards are affected by sacks is ridiculous. And now I have no clue how many yards he actually ran for, like I would in the NFL. Arizona State, though, that was our first Pac-12 game, and we brought the fight to them, that's for sure, 38-6. Our offense can put up a ton of points, and we found out this season that it was hard to beat us in a track meet. When our offense is firing on all cylinders and we're able to put up a bunch of points, our defense is too good to give up the same kind of performance. So you see the two games we lost, we scored a combined 16 points. You only could beat us if you could stop the offense. There were some close calls, though, that could have changed that over the course of the season. The Stanford game was really surprising to me because I'm used to our offense being nearly unstoppable, and in this game, we couldn't move the football well. We passed, not too well. Warren got hurt. And then, obviously, the ground game here. This was when I really had some major concerns, and I was wondering, like, all right, how good is this team going to be if all we can do is throw and we have this not very good offensive line giving up all these sacks? But after that, I felt like the running game actually did pretty well this year. I had to get creative and using option and multiple backs and just being kind of smart in how I used it as we had some tough matchups. This was one of those games right here, the Washington State overtime game that went, I believe, 5 overtimes. If we lose this game, there's no national championship this year. And overtime games can go either way. You never know what's going to happen. You could fumble the football, just a freak play that can end your day, basically. And Washington State, their offense gave us a real challenge in this game. I was really impressed with their quarterback, McMillan. Their running game, when they stuck to it, it did well. And they also had some mistakes on offense that helped them out. The Oregon game just basically outran them in this one, scoring 51 points to their 27. The Washington game, that one was pretty close. Just a 7-point victory here. And this was one of the games where we gave up a lot of pass production, that's for sure. Then we go Oregon State. This one also, this one was a little tough, especially in the first half, but then we pulled away until the fourth quarter for them. We kept our rivalry going with Hawaii and defeated them yet again. Then we beat Cal narrowly in the final game of the regular season. We get the incredible performance by Xavier Bozeman in the Pac-12 title game. That could have gone so many different ways because UCLA had 2 red zone turnovers, and those are major swings, especially when we capitalize on them. Those are 14-point swings. So for Bozeman to have that game in this spot, like, it's another game where, we could have definitely lost it. And obviously not facing Jesse Heikkinen, we didn't see UCLA at their very best. But it's not like Britt was terrible, although he had interceptions down the stretch. I want to say he had 3 interceptions in the game's final 5 minutes. So that does skew things a bit. And then the national title game against Houston. I didn't know what to expect because they're not the kind of team you expect to be number 1 overall. But they did have a lot of good players. And I felt like in the beginning, we were kind of getting ourselves into a tough spot when Brandon Warren got hurt. And they had Harper, their outside linebacker. Man, he was good. 2 tackles for loss, 9 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. He tried to put together the Xavier Bozeman performance and came up a little short. But we got some things to go our way here. They didn't score in the second half. Justin Colbert hit that big late pass to Hayden John Charles when he was nearly taken to the ground inside the 5-yard line. So it's really cool to see, like, we win the national championship. We had this great season, but then you look back at the different games and it's like, wow, we're only here because we managed to hang on in overtime against Washington State, and we could have definitely lost that game. We only ended up in the national championship because we didn't let the struggles early against UCLA hold us back, and we had this big defensive comeback. So that's what I really enjoy about these series, when a variety of outcomes are possible and you still end up winning games and winning big championships. So let's take a look at the statistics for this season, and there are a lot of things I like here, including 11 interceptions in 14 games. I deserve an award for that. It is the second best, I believe, interception season on either of my channels. Only 11. Turnovers have always been my Achilles heel, but this season we really cleaned it up in a season where it could have gotten out of hand with the offensive line and just getting into bad trouble, different situations. But the interceptions weren't a big issue. And Brandon Warren this year had a very good season passing, but we do know now that this injury rating of his that I saw early on is a little bit of a concern. He got hurt a couple times this year. He missed, what amounts to almost 3 games, I'd say, between the national championship, the game Colbert started, and the game he got hurt in the first place. So 24 touchdowns, 11 picks, 71% completion percentage, and just over 3,000 yards. And then Justin Colbert. Many wanted me to transfer him, like manually put him on another team, and I might do that in year 9, but look at the role he got to play this season, then having to start a game and finish out the national championship. That was a big spot for him. So that's now the second time on this channel where a backup quarterback has had to play a big role on a team, although Colbert's role wasn't the same as Andrew Johnson's with the Minnesota Gophers. For the running game, Kyle Thomas 4.4 a carry, Troy Lee 6.1. He just managed to pull off a lot of big runs. You see Thomas, who's a faster back, have over double the touches, yet Lee had more 20-plus yard runs. Brandon Warren had more than both of them, getting 9. Bo Lee had 1. Hayden John Charles ended up with 1. Must have been from a lateral being ruled a running play. But I really like the group of running backs that we have. Troy Lee is graduating, so is Terrence McKinley. So Kyle Thomas needs a new sidekick going into next season. And if you look at the depth chart, it could mean Marty Belafonte, could mean Marcus Payne, who really hasn't developed the way that I've wanted. You can see the averages for everybody, and then Payne gets into the games late when they're out of hand and they're just basically over. And we're talking 2.6 yards a carry for him. I had really high hopes for Payne, but I'm not sure if he's going to have a big role on the team. He's a career 2.4 yard a carry back. But I really enjoy the dynamic between Thomas and Lee. I kind of use these backs in the same way. I feel they both are pretty versatile. Troy Lee's career ends after 792 yards and 8 touchdowns, 9 big plays on the ground. And then Kyle Thomas still has another year of eligibility. He ended up with less rushing yards this year and a far lower average. And you can credit that to basically the drop-off in O-line play. We graduated 4 players this past season, and Thomas's production did take a hit. In the passing game, looks like Thomas's numbers are pretty steady these last couple of years. I think I used Troy Lee a bit more as a receiving back this season, and he did have a lot more production there, that's for sure. In the receiving game, there were some good discoveries this season, like Carl Joyce continuing to be a big play machine. We had our best 3 receivers here, all 7 touchdowns, by the way. But Joyce, yeah, big deep threat for us. His numbers did take a step up this season. He can do more than just catch the ball down the field, though, we found out. He did play well in a possession role as well this season. I'm not sure he could have a year ago with a lower catch rating, but it worked out for us this year. How many drops do we have from Joyce, by the way? I don't recall very many, and he only had 3. So that's pretty big. You can tell by his yards per catch that he didn't go deep. Like, his plays weren't quite as big as last year. We see that the yards after the catch is hardly higher on a lot more receptions, and it's obviously lower per catch. So he didn't just go downfield, and he was still able to be a pretty complete receiver. I thought I'd get him to 1,000 yards, but he didn't have a big game in the national championship is all. With Hayden Jean-Charles, he started off this season really slowly and didn't have a big day until Justin Colbert had to start. And when we have a pocket passer, that usually leads to more production from our tight ends in our offense. And that's what we saw whenever Colbert got onto the field. So Hayden Jean-Charles now 20 touchdowns in his career, over 2,300 yards, 164 catches. He is really the closest thing I've ever had in any of my series to Rob Gronkowski. I think they have similar play styles. Late in the season, we saw the emergence of Justin Payne, who is a possession receiver, just a sophomore. Around the football world, you're seeing more of these big slot receivers because, like in the NBA, you have big men who can shoot threes. Now in the NFL, you have big men who have great change of direction and agility and route running. So that's what we have here with Justin Payne. He's kind of a Larry Fitzgerald, Marcus Colston style slot receiver, and he's able to be really good for us in that role. And especially like in that UCLA game, I gave him some really tough looks where he had to hang on through contact. Only 1 drop here in his career on 58 catches, 7 touchdowns this season. I think he has a very big role in the offense moving forward. And maybe I can use him as the main possession receiver and let Carl Joyce go deep even more where he's better. And then down the list, we have a few more contributors. Obviously, this season I hyped up the twin tight end offense, which didn't end up having a major role. I think Thomas Roberts got a lot more of his production early in the season than late, and next year he's going to be a senior along with Hayden Jean-Charles. So I hope that we can utilize both of our athletic tight ends. I like to use Roberts a bit more in like a receiver capacity too. Mike Harris kind of got lost in the shuffle this season as his production went way down. That was just like the emergence of Justin Payne, Carl Joyce getting more of the workload. So Mike Harris's numbers did go down. He ends his career with 6 career drops, but he was very reliable throughout his time here at Kalispell, and he's from Kalispell. Marty Belafonte, yeah, we've talked about him here and there. I think that going forward, we're going to talk about him a whole lot more. He is a dynamic returner, and he's exceeded my expectations with how dynamic he has been. He has only 26 career carries, but 2 of them over 20 yards, and then receiving, he usually catches a couple screen passes for us every now and then. He has 10 career catches. But it's obviously his return game that is special. He averages nearly 30 yards per return, 3 career kickoff return touchdowns, 1 career punt return touchdown. But if he gets a role on offense, I don't know if he's going to have the same return role. His injury rating is a 76, and I don't think that if we use him like Troy Lee and he returns, that it's going to be the best idea. We kind of have to pick one or the other. For the offensive line, there were definitely some concerns this year. We were a lot more inconsistent. We gave up 16 sacks here from our left tackle, Josh Thomas, and our right tackle, Noah Manuwai, gave up 10. Next year, though, the offensive line is going to have a chance to develop, and the only senior starter was Andy Colbert, who actually got hurt this season and proved that offensive linemen could get hurt in this game without recovering a fumble. He was not in a tackle animation and still got hurt. That seems like a 1 in a million thing here in NCAA. It's the only one I've seen. I've played, I don't know, a couple 100+ games, and I've never seen it until now. For the defense, I can't believe we haven't talked about defense yet. I've talked about offense so much. Man, we always have so many good playmakers in my series on the defensive side of the football. We have Alex Hardy, who helped engineer the goal line stand to win us the Rose Bowl in Season 7. He led the team in tackles and had a bunch of tackles for loss. We had our edge rushers, both seniors, do really well, but now we have to replace those players going into next season. Chris Harrison, 11 sacks. Marion Triplett had 9. Then our interior rush, Bobby Hill, 7 sacks. Boogie Turner also had 7. So Boogie is the only starter returning next year. I don't know who's playing yet on the edge. Probably Maurice Collins on one side, but the other side is kind of up for grabs. Obviously, Xavier Bozeman had his big breakout game, and the two things he's really good at basically are hitting, 93 hit power, and he has 84 zone coverage. So next season, I think he plays a lot as well. He played quite a bit this season, and I'm excited to see what he can do. We're obviously going to have a bit more turnover on the defensive side this year than the offensive side. I have a list here of all the senior starters, by the way. Let me grab that. It was Troy Lee, Mike Harris, and Andy Colbert on offense, then Chris Harrison, Marion Triplett, Bobby Hill, Alex Hardy, Glenn Hayes, and Michael Hunter on defense, who are all graduating. In the interception department, Oscar Bryant had 4 picks, Glenn Hayes had 3, Chris Baker had 2, Xavier Bozeman, Akinjide, Wesley Merrill. Now, Michael Hunter could have had so many more interceptions, but he just can't catch the football. As the cliche goes, that's why he plays corner and not receiver. He just struggles to catch the football, and he's still a really good cover corner. He really does not let a lot get behind him, and he came up big for us late in the season in some key games with big pass deflections. I really enjoyed having Glenn Hayes on this team. He was extremely versatile. He ends his career with 7 interceptions, 3 touchdowns, 2 forced fumbles, 3 sacks. I was very creative in how I used him throughout his college career. He also played a little bit of offense very early, and you can see it didn't really amount to much. So I'm glad I kept him on defense where he could shine. We had 5 defensive touchdowns this season. I like seeing the defense turn into offense every now and then. And a couple more players I want to talk about. Mario Townsend, really enjoy him in his kind of backup role coming off the bench. He has 4 sacks in each of his 2 seasons. Next year, who knows? He could be a starter. He could be asked to play a whole lot more and rush the passer. Here are career numbers now for Kalispell. Brandon Warren, 5,200 yards with 2 years of eligibility remaining, 48 passing touchdowns, and 24 interceptions. Justin Colbert, I'm not sure yet if I'm going to be manually transferring him. I did wonder if by not playing him much, if he'd transfer on his own, but he might have played enough to reach a certain threshold this season. I'm not sure exactly. In the running game, Kyle Thomas, 1,600 yards in his career, 8 touchdowns. For receiving, Hayden John Charles, that's a lot of production. He has 1 more year to maybe get to 200 catches, 3,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. Could be some milestones on the horizon. For defense, we have Chris Harrison checking in with 22 career sacks. Marion Triplett had 17. Obviously, a lot of damage done here as a senior defensive end. But I think Boogie Turner continues to take another leap forward next season. And we're seeing him even make a big impact in the running game. I know he had 1 big run stop in the national championship. He's going to be really good. I don't think we've seen the best of Boogie quite yet. So I think now we talk about where this team is at going into Season 9. Obviously, we continue to lose some key players every year. That's just college football right there. So we have a big recruiting class this year. I was really excited about our first year in the Pac-12 and the class we've been able to get to this point, and it's not finished yet. We still have a chance to land some more good prospects, so let's go through the players that have already committed to Kalispell. Our first commit this year was wide receiver Brian Newsome, just trying to keep some depth in that spot. I think it'll take him a while to get on the field. Nick Robinson is one of the athletes we have a commit from. He's only 161 pounds, and I think he's going to play on the defensive side of the football. 80-man coverage, 86 zone, 92 speed. He might even play running back. I'm not sure. We'll have to see. He doesn't have the best strength. He doesn't have the best return skills. He doesn't have the best tackling. So we'll find the right home for him, though, and develop him at a certain spot. I just think his coverage skills are the most impressive. Here's a player I'm very excited about, Ronnie Howard, who's a 4-star athlete at 78 overall. Howard has skills that can make him a good running back or a good safety. Either one of those spots. He also has an 84 injury rating, but his man coverage is good, his zone coverage is good, the press rating really keeps him from being able to play cornerback, and the running back skills are good, so I'll have to make a decision on that. Marcus Jordan, defensive tackle. He is going to be someone we count on to pass rush in the future. If the season goes beyond, or if the series goes beyond 10 years, he could be the one to replace Boogie Turner. Here is maybe the best overall player we've had a commit from, Brandon Smith, #1 ranked tackle. He just so happens to be right here in Montana, and he's staying home. He's a good all-around tackle. I like the high pass run and impact block ratings, the good acceleration. He will play from day one as left tackle, protecting Brandon Warren. Braylon Kendrick is an outside linebacker, and with our depth at that spot, he's definitely going to see most of his time on the bench early on. And the same can be said for safety Lonnie Johnson and outside linebacker Cameron Stewart. Then we have some more offensive linemen. Mike Butler from Minnesota. He's a junior college transfer. I don't think he'll play next season, but with a year redshirted, I think he'll be good to go for 2 years afterwards. Another JUCO transfer right here, Terry Ingram, a 75 overall tackle. He'll probably sit next season. Then Michael Hurst at defensive end, 232 pounds. Does have pretty good acceleration. Block shedding is high. I just think it'll take a little time to get the skill set a bit more complete. And then a 63 overall corner, Marcus Smith, just focused on making sure we have depth at certain spots and players who can develop for a long time. So we definitely have some day one impact from this class, and I think that the player that could really get things finalized here is Daniel Foster, but we know it's not going to be easy, already trailing in this battle against NC State and Florida. He is an outstanding athlete and one of the best coverage athletes I've ever seen here. 94-man coverage on day one. That is incredible. 92 speed. I mean, he could have #1 cornerback potential on day one, but we can't bank on getting him for sure. We're going to put a lot of points into this battle. That's all I know, and we'll see if it's enough. But I'm also looking to put some points into James Huggins from Ohio. And we've had trouble recruiting from Ohio. It's getting easier, though. And that's where Xavier Bozeman is from, by the way. So thankfully, that's one of the battles we actually won. But Huggins, very good block shed, very good speed. Just a really good run stopper here. And you always need at least one of those. So going forward here in the Kalispell Dynasty, we're going to be getting into next season very soon. I am planning on maybe tweaking a couple sliders. I do want to do some things with the CPU ground game if I can. Probably nothing too drastic. And I'm even considering boosting up the quarter length by a 1. Just because some of our games, depending on the teams playing, they can go by really fast. And that's what we saw in the national championship. There were not very many plays run in that game compared to where I think it should be. So I might increase the quarter length by a 1. It also makes it so that it's a little bit more difficult to run out the clock in the fourth quarter, because on 8-minute quarters with the acceleration, if you have a comfortable lead and you're running the football, the fourth quarter can go by extremely fast. Here's something I've actually never done. We're going to look at the NCAA career stats and see if there's anyone who really stands out in any spot. Obviously, Jesse Heikkinen was one of the key players in this series as far as a recruit goes. He has a ton of yards. The most career touchdowns right now, but the most yards, that goes to Raymond Washington from Indiana. He doesn't have the most impressive touchdown numbers. They're solid, but it's more so he's just been a 4-year starter, stayed healthy, and thrown for a bunch of yards in his career. For running, Brent Smiley is the current leader in rushing yards with over 5,000 at Georgia Tech, and those ratings are pretty good. Then you have Michael Hall from Tulsa, Will Hood from Colorado. I love seeing all this stuff here. Marcus Summers is one of the best. We faced him in the national championship. How about catching the football? 210 catches for Lance Warren. Really good route running there. Catching actually a bit lower than you would expect, but he definitely was more of a yardage guy over his career. And just, again, he was a 4-year starter, and those players have a good advantage here when it comes to obviously putting up big numbers. Now, one player we didn't talk about in the national championship was Kyle Jenkins because we shut him down. No catches for one of the best receivers in this dynasty. He had no impact. He's 6'6", had a bunch of touchdowns, won the Biletnikoff Award. I never saw that. And he did nothing against us. Not a single catch. Career sacks, Landon Shanky. That was one of the prospects created by Blackjack. And he did some big things here at Oklahoma, that's for sure. Interceptions, Chris Brown from Western Michigan had 17 in his career. Bobby Dowdell, we helped him out in the Pac-12 title game a little bit. Chris Brown, though, 99 press, 92 man, 90 zone coverage. He had, 3 seasons with more than 5 or more. Really good. And then all those pass deflections, he could have had even more. 7 forced fumbles by Johnny Jones, linebacker here for Rice. How about defensive touchdowns? 6 for Adam Herron. He just has a nose for the end zone. Like Aqib Talib has a million pick sixes in his career. He has one of the best pick six rates on his interceptions. So yeah, 10 picks here. And how many fumble recoveries? 1. So that's 11 chances and 6 touchdowns. That's really good. Oh wow, there is a kick returner with a better average than Marty Belafonte. That'd be Todd Curtis here for Texas. And in punt returns, it's Brandon Castillo. Oh, most interceptions. It is Damian Nugent from UMass with 46 in his career. It's not me who has the most interceptions. Although these stats, they're not great. It's just, again, 4-year starter. Gonna have the most volume. Oh, and the player with the most catches in his career, Lance Warren, also has the most drops. That's fun. I have to check that after every season now. I like seeing those career numbers. That's really cool. And I didn't go through awards because I think we know most of the important ones already, but I'll go through them quickly now. But thank you all for supporting this series and continuing to make it one of the most fun projects I've ever done. I obviously don't want it to end anytime soon. Obviously, sometime it is going to end, but I'm going to go at least 10 seasons in this series, like with Minnesota, and we'll see where we go from there. Hayden John Charles, by the way, 4th this year in the Mackey voting. He just didn't have the numbers that Quentin Ryan put up. Look at that. 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns. Wow. Thankfully, he didn't do that a year ago. What a jump his career took. But this series has definitely been special, and I love what I'm able to create here on the channel. I really like the content that I make. I love the kind of videos that I've made here for so many years, and it's a formula that I really believe in, and obviously, a lot of you enjoy it as well. So thank you as always for supporting me, supporting the channel, and continuing to show your enthusiasm for the series and the players and the stories. It is everything I could ever want this to be. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your feedback below on your favorite memories, plays, and moments from this past season. And what do you think about this team moving into the future? Thank you again, and have a great day.